This podcast may contain discussions of graphic violence, unsettling themes, supernatural phenomena, and other topics that some listeners may find disturbing or triggering. Listener discretion is advised. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed are simply those of the individual hosts and do not represent the profession of psychology or constitute professional advice. Welcome back, guys, to the Secret Passage podcast. Sorry, I was distracted by my cat. I'm Dana Vespoli. Here's my co-host, Shannon Rogers.
That's right.
I'm sorry, I just said your name. You could have done it, and I did instead.
That's okay. I love being introduced.
Oh my goodness, we're back. Another video episode. Hope you guys liked the last one. Well, Shannon, any interesting secret passages you traveled down this past week?
Well, I had a memory because we're talking about college this week. And I had this memory of when I first started JFK that I really wanted to share.
Okay.
So JFKU is a kind of a hippie university. They used to have like a parapsychology program back in the day.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So it's kind of like on par with CIIS, which everybody knows about, California Institute of Integral Studies. And that's the San Francisco version of JFK. But JFK is like dead now. It went out of business. It sold itself to National University and then it got corporatized. And then like, I think it still exists, but it's only online for National University. Anyway, when I first started there, I had my first class and it was called Paradigms of Consciousness. Because I got my degree in transpersonal psychology, which is like, spiritual psychology. And that's where I learned like about Pema Chodron and like did diamond approach work. But in my first class, I sat down and the teacher was calling roll and he called out someone's name and I hear this little voice in the background. It's all, the name I nurture is Gaia. I was like, the name I nurture is Gaia. Wow. Okay. And so that was my first experience in my first class. And then by the time I got to the end of my program in like 2003, to become a therapist, you have to do like a year of field placement before you do your internship. So most of us went to the John F. Kennedy University Center for Holistic Counseling in Oakland. And was in this old church. And right at the end of remember Harrison Street and Oakland Avenue? Like when Peter and I lived in that, did you never know us when we lived in that warehouse space between Harrison Street and Oakland Avenue?
Yes, that's where I first met you. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So the counseling center was down at the end of Harrison Street. And so anyway, we had this ceremony. So the cohorts would move through the counseling center and, one cohort would start and then they would be halfway through and then another cohort would start. And so every time we had a new cohort coming in, they would plan the group ahead would plan this ritual for the people who came in afterwards. So we show up and we're all nervous, right? And we're this small cohort because it was like the spring cohort. And they blindfold us. I know they thought this was like so cool. They probably spent so much time doing this, but I think they blindfolded us or they said, you have to close your eyes. And we're in this group and we close our eyes and they lead us down these stairway into this cold basement. You could just feel it getting colder and colder and colder. And someone is playing the didgeridoo in the background. And I'm like,
it sounds like a horror movie.
Eyes wide shut.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there's a didgeridoo in the background, which I find is a terrifying instrument. So I'm like,
it's a spooky sound. Yeah.
Didgeridoo don't do that to me.
Didgeridoo stop. Didgeridoo knock it off.
So I'm like already like, what the? And then all of a sudden we get led to these chairs and we sit in a circle and then I can hear people shuffling around us, forming a circle around us. And then they go through everybody's name. And I was a lister back then. So they're like, Shannon Lister. And then all of a sudden, everybody in the room would chant, we welcome your light. We went through the whole thing. Sylvia Costales, we welcome your light. And then
Gaia.
Gaia. Name I nurture is Gaia.
Did she get her light nurtured?
No, Gaia was a man, and he lost
Oh,
his voice during a retreat, and he thought it was like a spiritual thing. And
okay.
he's adorable though. He was a very sweet person. But anyway, so he didn't end up going through the whole program. But so we're standing there, and then they make us turn around, open our eyes, and face everyone, the teachers, the therapists, and they move around the circle painfully slowly, staring you in the eyes as like it was like a hazing. And I look over at my friend Sylvia and she's just bawling. And I'm like, I know. And we left and she was like, that was like spiritual rape. And I was like, kind of. So anyway, that was my secret passage that I wanted to share with the world.
Spiritual rape is a new expression I'm going to adopt. That's wild.
It was so
That's
insane.
yeah. That is so interesting. I had no idea. This whole time I thought that you went through like kind of a standard program where you go to classes and you do this, you do that, you know. But that's something else.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
but I was old enough, that I mean, I was like 29 or something. But I can imagine if I was like 19.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Wow.
about you?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of something. I also, researching this episode got me thinking also about my college years and my time rowing crew, which I did in college. I went to a Division 3 school. I was nowhere near the level of the two people we're talking about this episode, Madison Holleran and Katie Meyer. They're both elite level athletes. But even just within my little team and all of that, I remember really being absorbed. Like it was my world, it was my life. And
Mhm.
so just I think about that, like on that level, even for me, just how much my identity was wrapped in the team, in my coach, in just every like it was the focal point of my life for that, for those years. So I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about kind of all the different. Sorry, guys. If you see me looking around like this, I'm not just I'm just checking where all my individual animals are at any given time in the room. But yeah, just how our identities are shaped and how vulnerable we are when we're teens, and our sense of self, and just how our world narrows into just whatever it is that our focus is on. And you see that in kids trying on these different things, like my goth phase, my this phase, that phase, and you see yourself just in that's your whole identity. So I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about my identity at the age of 19, 20 versus like kind of where I am now, and the weird, absolutely bizarre, wild, crazy, but fantastic nonetheless, my journey to where I am now. And all the times that I have succeeded, all the times that I have fucked up really badly, all the times that I have managed to redeem myself, all the times that I still up to now have a lot to sort of reconcile. And so I think about, I know that's a very odd kind of twisty turny secret passage, but that's what I love about doing these shows, is the reflection that we get to have on the ways in which these stories, these people's stories, we're all connected in a way, but the ways in which we're connected, and the ways in which their stories resonate for us, and hopefully for you guys listening. So very heavy
Yeah.
week doing the research. But with that said, I guess let's get into it. Today we're talking about two really extraordinary young women who are no longer with us. Madison Holleran, who was a 19-year-old incredibly gifted student and athlete at University of Pennsylvania. Major trigger warning, we are talking about suicide. So just, you know, it's just letting everyone know in case they need to like click past, totally get it. It's a tough subject, but it's an important one, especially just because there's Madison's story, which she died in 2014, January 2014. But more recently, Katie Meyer, who's also incredibly gifted soccer star at Stanford, good student, also died by suicide in 2022. So more recently, and her family is suing Stanford University for wrongful death, and they go to trial in 2026, so next year. And so we're talking about them because this is a situation which we see time and time again, which is really incredibly the people we think that have everything. Madison was a gorgeous girl, seemed to have it all, had a social media presence that was really, she presented as perfect, really. If you looked at her Instagram, you would think this girl is happy. This girl is going places. Look at her; she's got so many friends. Look at all of these. Oh, what's that? Not just a soccer star, but a track star. Like she wasn't. It was like she was being recruited for soccer, and then was doing track as a way to stay in shape. Just so happened to be like breaking records for track, like without even
Mhm.
trying, and then ended up being recruited by University of Pennsylvania for track. So you see that loving family, big family, financially secure. They were doing fine. And then after her first semester at University of Pennsylvania, she took her life. She felt like a failure. And so there's
Hmm.
there's the way we present to the world, and this pressure we feel to curate our lives, to present a reality that is heavily filtered, that isn't real, and then at the same time believing what we see in other people's profiles, even though like cognitively we know better, right? Intellectually we know better. I feel like if you had said, hey Madison, you know that not everything that you see on Instagram is real, she'd probably say, well, yeah, I know. And I think she even said to her mom's like, oh, you look so happy in these pictures you posted. And she goes, Mom, those are just pictures. So
Hmm.
she even knows. She even knew.
Hmm.
But we believe what we see. We tend to, even though intellectually we know better, we tend
Mhm.
to believe, we tend to covet these things that we know are impossible, but we want them to be real.
Was that part of what, like, in terms of what led her to do it, was that considered a big factor? That she was sort of looking online and comparing herself to other people and
I
that
don't,
kind of
I,
thing?
I don't, I think that
Mhm.
may have been a small part of it.
Okay. I mean, I know it's absolute hell. I know we all
Yeah.
do it. We compare our insides to other people's outsides all the time, and everybody curates their image on Instagram and looks like they're living their best life. And it's
Right.
easy to feel like, there's something wrong with you.
To the point where they stage entire things to make it seem like this is the thing while they're not. There's a very scary sci-fi aspect to it, which I think is even Black Mirror has done one or more episodes about this,
Yeah.
the way that social media kind of rules our lives. But I'm going to get into the
Oh, okay.
facts of
Okay.
Madison real quick for you guys. I found out about this case right after it happened in 2014. I saw this news item about it, and was struck by how did this happen? What was happening with this girl that she took her life, and in such a shocking way. Okay. Anyway, so
Mm.
as I said, Madison was a successful track athlete, soccer athlete as well, but track is what took her to the Ivy Leagues. She's from New Jersey, straight A student, and initially she appeared to be thriving. She had a perfect social media presence. Inside, though, she was struggling. She was feeling anxiety and depression. And the transition to college was really, really hard for her. She was losing weight, and I think really struck by the contrast of, her high school and, the rhythm and pattern she was in with just, she'd study, she'd get A's, study for the test, get A's. University
Mhm.
of Pennsylvania. She finished her first semester with a 3.5, which is fantastic to anybody else, not to her, because she was a 4.0 student. And so she saw that as failure. When she was on the track team at UPenn, she also, was top notch in her high school. I mean, we see this time and time again with high school students that are recruited for their sport to college, and they realize that they're no longer the star. They're maybe, if they're lucky, middle of the pack, and that's where she was kind of sitting right in the middle of the pack. So she was
Mm.
dealing with the elevated pressure of her, track life at Penn and the academics at Penn.
Mm.
And she was very, very anxious, feeling out of sorts. And she went home for Christmas break. Well, prior to that, she went home for Thanksgiving and revealed to her family that she was not feeling right. A lot of people were telling her, like, hey, listen, this is normal. This is normal. Her sister, her older sister, had gone to Penn State, struggled, hated it, felt depressed there, transferred to University of Alabama, and it was like night and day. She was happy. So her
Mm.
family understandably thought, okay, well, Madison, maybe Penn isn't for you. Maybe you should go back. She had been recruited, and she had given a verbal commitment to Lehigh University, which is, I think it was a Division II school, less pressure
Mhm.
for soccer. Soccer
Mm.
was her true love.
Mm.
There's this really fantastic book by this writer Kate Fagan, who had written a fantastic ESPN article called "Split Image" for anybody that wants to look that up. It's a fantastic read. And then she took her research further, and she wrote a book called "What Made Maddie Run." Because Kate Fagan had struggled with depression and anxiety. I'm not sure about suicidal ideation, but she speaks at length to with different people about it in the book. But it's a book all about Maddie and her family and how they dealt with this. But in the book, it's described that the coach that was really recruiting her from Lehigh University just saw in her like a real talent for soccer. That was her true love. And Kate Fagan talks about how it's soccer was her true love, but she was not going to be recruited to an Ivy for
Mm.
soccer. And this is the crazy thing, like straight A student, not good enough for Harvard, not good enough
Mm.
for Harvard. I quick aside, at Adams High School graduation, I was listening to kids walking across, getting their diplomas, having gotten 4.3 grade point
Oh my
averages.
god.
4.0 was like, that's it,
Yeah.
man. If you're at 4.0, you're good. You're golden. No, that 4.0 was not enough. Penn was where she was going to be, where for track, even though track
Mhm.
was not her first love, soccer was her first love. But her parents were saying, like, let go there. Like we'll figure this out. You don't have to do this. And the most frightening thing for me, especially as a parent
Mm.
in researching Maddie's life, was that her parents did everything right. They did everything right. They listened to her. They were like, we need to get her help. We need to get her into therapy. She saw a therapist at Penn who was kind of, I got the impression, was like, no, I mean, this is normal. You're
Mhm.
dealing with pressures. This is normal. And it's a thing where maybe the way that Madison was articulating it, it does sound normal. Hey, I don't feel right. But one of the things that Madison kept saying is, no, this isn't normal. The way I'm feeling isn't normal. Just this anxiety, this doom, this dread.
Yeah.
She went home for Christmas,
Mm.
still wasn't finding relief. Even at home, she wasn't finding relief. And she kept repeating that this wasn't normal, that she knew she needed to get help. They found a therapist for her. They were going to look for a therapist for her in Philly
Mhm.
that was not a school counselor, but like
Mhm.
an actual therapist. That she never had the chance to do that. but she had a therapist at home that she was seeing a little bit, and admitted, and this is maybe the scary thing, or that the in hindsight, maybe had they really taken what she had said and like held on to it, could have maybe saved her. She said that she had thought about killing herself,
Mhm.
but assured everyone that she wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
So they think they held on to that. And also because everything up to this point with her going, getting ready for, like, everything up to college seemed to be going fine. She had
Mhm.
fun. She would party with her friends, lots of text messages back and forth. She laughed. The laughing stopped. So there were these signs: weight loss. She wasn't funny anymore.
Mm.
Her siblings even pointed out, "Hey, you used to laugh all that. You don't laugh anymore. What's up? You're so serious." Maybe all of these things, of course, hindsight.
Mhm.
Like, okay, there's the signs. But she went back to school. She made the decision to quit the track team at Penn, thinking that
Mm.
maybe this would help. But I think that everything kind of she saw as a failure on her part. So she spoke to the coach. The coach was great. The coach was like, "Hey, I get it. It's okay, but also maybe we could try this instead. Maybe you come to practice as you see fit. Like, we can revisit this conversation in a week or so." And
Mhm.
she said, "Okay." And her mom and her sister were there for moral support. Again, parents fucking doing everything right.
Mm.
Being there with her, talking to the coach. And then she decided, okay, this is what I'll do, on top of finding a therapist in Philadelphia. Her dad had told her, driving her to back to school after Christmas break, he's like, "We don't have to we don't have to drive to Penn right now. We can drive to Chapel Hill. We can look at that school. We can look at Vanderbilt. We can look at all of these other schools. Like, we don't have to do this. You don't
Mm.
have to go back. You do
Mhm.
not have to go back. We don't have to do this." And Madison, thinking about this immediate obligation she had, was like, "No, my friends are expecting me at the basketball game at
Mm.
Penn. My friends, she had friends at Princeton that were going to be playing in the game, and she had promised that she would be there for that." So there's Madison again, feeling the sense of obligation. And so he took her to school, and she went to the game. And a week later, about a week later, she woke up in the morning. She made her bed and she cleaned her side of the room, the dorm room, which is something that she never did in the past. Like, she was meticulous in the way she would execute things, but she was kind of a slob, like a teenage girl, like at home. She made her bed.
Mm.
She wiped her browser history clean on her computer. She went to the student store at Penn. She bought some things. She bought gifts for some of her friends and family. She was answering text messages up until a certain time in the afternoon. Then she stopped.
Mm.
And then she went into Philadelphia. This is the craziest thing. She took a picture of Rittenhouse Square, just of the trees and everything like that. And I
Mm.
guess the actual image was kind of a bleak one. It was
Mm.
January in Philadelphia. And then she put a filter on it, made everything look bright. Everything looked
Mm.
beautiful and perfect. And, like, as Kate Fagan describes it, it almost looked like looking at it underwater. And she
Mm.
posted it to Instagram. And then she ran into the coach that had recruited her, was heavily recruiting her for soccer at Lehigh University. And he spoke to her, asked her how she was doing. She said she was okay, that things weren't going as great as she had hoped. And he said he had to be careful about the way that he spoke to her, because you coaches can't poach athletes. But he said, in his own way, he's like, things can change. Like, you can go through proper channels, and there's the door's always opened to you for you.
Mm.
And then she thanked him, and then she left, and she went to a parking garage, and she went up 9 stories, put the bag of gifts, including a note, where they could be found at the top of the parking garage. And she ran, and she jumped like a hurdle, like she had done so many times for track, over the parking garage, and fell to her death. And the
Mm.
note, It's interesting about Madison because she was so very meticulous. A lot of people wondered how she chose this parking garage because it was nowhere near anything that she had ever gone by. But the thing about that parking garage, which I have a feeling the reason why she deleted her browser history was looking for methods, and also maybe once settling upon a method, looking for a place. And the interesting thing about that parking
Mm.
garage is that it was the site of like a satellite installation of this project called Passing Through, which
Mm.
was a collection of just words. Like what the artist did was play a recorder, like just had a recorder, and people would pass by, and he or she would catch snippets of conversation passing by, and threaded everything together into
Wow.
this really fascinating, almost like a run on sentence. But an aspect in the run on sentence was the phrase, she had wings on, which is
Mm.
very, very interesting and
Poignant.
poignant and telling that like Madison, she was a very precise person. But that was the site of the installation. So it's all along the parking garage. And then like she would pass through those words to go up. And then her note was a line from Virginia Woolf's "A Room of One's Own," which I'll read to you because it also, I think, it tells you everything in a
Mm.
way. And that's the interesting thing about Madison was, she was such a person that was a lot more creative maybe than she allowed herself to be. She had talked about business, that business was the major that made sense for her. An
Mhm.
Ivy League is where everyone wants to go. It's where she should want to go. There were all these things about the way she imagined her life was supposed to be versus maybe where happiness was going to be,
Right.
right?
Like
And
she
it's just in
should versus what she really truly values and wants in her life, right? Like
yeah,
she would have been much happier probably playing soccer. But
playing soccer, which allowed an escape from her mind. And that's one of the things that Kate Fagan talks about in the book, that soccer allowed her an escape from the rigidity of her mind, because you can't anticipate plays, or you can, I suppose, but it allowed her to think outside of this box. It allowed her to rely on other things, whereas track was just this race, right?
mhm.
It's this race, and
Mhm.
it's not a I mean, there's the track team, but you're the
Mhm.
one racing. Soccer allowed for collaboration, which is a kind of comfort in a way, and that you're not playing just for yourself, you're playing for your team,
Mhm.
and you're playing with your team. And it's interesting too because apparently she never got her driver's license. She was so rigid in some ways, but she didn't feel the need to get her driver's license because she counted on that sense of community, of people kind of coming together to give other people rides. They'd come pick her up, she'd ride with them, she'd talk to them, which
Hmm.
I feel like is also kind of part of that community, like of soccer. But there's a poet in her. There was a poet in her because
Mhm.
the choice in, and I'm not trying to romanticize what she did, I'm really not. I just feel like it's an insight into maybe the person she would have become had she allowed that aspect of herself to allow for the uncertainty. Business provided a certainty. An Ivy
Mhm.
League education, we used to think, provides a certainty, right? With art, there isn't that, right? That there's
It's impractical. Or
it's impract
right, it's
it
not
can
doesn't
be.
lead mhm,
Yeah,
right. Can be very
absolutely.
practical now, but yeah.
Yeah. And she maybe was too young to know that, okay, maybe that the two can exist simultaneously. You can be a business person who is an artist. But it's interesting to me, as somebody who studied Virginia Woolf in college, that she went into this parking garage, that on the entire side of the parking garage was essentially a stream of consciousness of
Mhm.
writing.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia Woolf innovated that stream of consciousness style of
Mm-hmm.
writing, and that she chose this quote from Virginia Woolf. Madison's note said, "I thought how unpleasant it is to be locked out, and I thought how it is worse, perhaps, to be locked in."
Mm.
And so maybe it's a coincidence, but Madison had a hard time articulating what was going on with her, and she was a big fan of language and words and quotes. And that quote, I think, shows this need to be the being afraid of being locked out of this idea of perfection, and then saying, worse perhaps is to be locked into this idea of perfection.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the note is simply her saying, "This is for you, this book, this
Mm-hmm.
thing is for grandma and grandpa, this thing is for,"
Mm.
and then included in this book, there was a book that she put in there that was it was a fictional story about a girl named Amelia who everyone thinks jumped off of a building to her death, and then through the story you find out she was pushed. So
Mm.
it's not that Madison was saying, "Hey, somebody came and pushed me," but I think that the push was from pressure, right, for her.
Did did she write that story? Or did
No,
she?
it's
Okay.
it's an
Uh-huh.
actual it's a novel. It's a
Mm.
thriller, but I think maybe the point of it, or the point she was trying to make, is that everyone thought Amelia was this one way.
Mm-hmm.
However, the truth is nothing was as it seemed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Madison's saying, I'm not what you think I am. She also included a picture of herself as a little girl,
Mm.
holding a tennis racket, which I think harkens back to happier times, and maybe her saying, "Just remember me this way." She told her parents, she told everyone she loved them, and she apologized.
Mm.
And there's something also incredibly symbolic about, and again, for anyone that thinks that maybe I'm romanticizing this or trying to make it something, it's a way to understand that this is just speculation on my part, but there's something symbolic about running and jumping, running like she had done so many times with track, and that the running led to her death, right? Running and jumping led to her death, that it killed her, that this pressure for that killed her, the pressure to be perfect killed her. But it ultimately, I think what was happening with Madison is there was, it seems as though she was actually struggling with a chemical imbalance made worse by the pressure to succeed and the pressure to be perfect. Because
Mm.
I the darkness and the apathy and the anxiety was something that it seems as though could have been treated, caught in
Definitely.
time. But this was a thing where there was it so much happened, and there was so little time to treat it.
Yeah.
And so there's a man in the book, "What Made Maddie Run" by Kate Fagan, that she describes him. He studied suicidology, and he said that you can think of suicide as cancer.
Mm.
That sometimes people have cancer, and they are able to overcome it. They're able to treat it. And there's some people that have cancer, they realize they have cancer, and it kills them immediately, right? The prognosis is incredibly short. And then there are those people who have cancer that they're battling it for so long until eventually they succumb to it, and that you
Mm-hmm.
can think of suicide the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's she had everything going for her, as far as a family that really loved her a lot, friends that really loved her a lot. But at the same time, when she was sort of trying to share how she was feeling, understandably, the people around her didn't understand, because they weren't feeling that, right? And then
That's part of the. Oh, go ahead.
it's worth mentioning that her father, on his side of the family, he said that mental illness or depression, again, you and I we'll talk later about defining mental illness, but that it ran on his side of the family.
Mhm.
But what's your takeaway from what you read about Madison and about Madison's condition?
Gosh, it's you I just learned a lot from you because I didn't do a ton of research into their lives. Yeah, I'm struck by how we're all walking around with so much going on inside of us that people may or may not know about. And that we used to joke around when I was training to be a therapist, and it's like the mind is a scary place. Like, don't go in there alone.
Yeah.
And it made me think about being trapped in your mind, and in a way, it's funny because the love of language, like I see the reason why we suffer so much as humans is basically because of language and how we have language and how we have a mind that can associate anything to anything at any time. And then like we could be walking around and we hear a song and then we remember, our mom's terrible death, or, it's like we can be struck by these things all the time. And we're always sort of having to contend with this mind that's symbolic. It's like if I told you right now to imagine taking a lemon and like squeezing it into your mouth and drinking the juice, we would all have we'd probably salivate, we'd probably have memories, we'd probably have sense memory, and that's the way our mind works. So like a thought is not just a thought. It's like a a lot, and it connects to feelings, and we're constantly being batted around by our minds. And if you don't have the right tools to be able to navigate that, you spend your whole life kind of tangled up, like wrestling with thoughts and feelings in this way, and being taken away into the tornado of, and depression is such a rumination kind of thing, disorder. I don't even want to say a disorder, but like, it's rumination, such a big part of it. And I can just imagine her stuck in there on a loop, believing every thought she's having, right? I'm not good enough. This is not good enough. Whatever the feelings were about being kind of in the middle to being mid when you're used to being on top, and just not having any tools to deal with it. And to me, the greatest tragedy is I think suicide's completely preventable. I think that, if systems like schools, there's a zero suicide movement, and I can put links in the show notes about it, but there's a great let's see, he's a social worker. Let me just share a little bit about him real quick. So his name is Jonathan Singer, and he has a podcast called the Social Work Podcast. And he's big in the zero suicide movement. And they try to work with schools and companies and organizations and even like fields where there's a lot of suicide. Like there's a lot of suicide in veterinarians, and there's a lot of suicide in construction. And so they try to get into organizations and prepare and train people and support them to recognize the signs and to intervene. And it really takes like a community to help someone. You can't just like have 1 hour of therapy a week and deal with something like major depressive disorder with suicidal ideation. And so anyway, there are resources available. I just think that somehow she didn't have a net and they didn't get in quick enough, and she didn't let them in maybe, but it's tragic because it's completely preventable, I believe. And I think her fuse was just too short. She just got whatever it was that she was feeling. It feels like she was on fire with it. And the best option she could come up with was what she did. And that just makes me sad because these feelings that she was having are not permanent, and she must have felt like they were. And suicide makes a lot of sense if you're in pain and you think that pain's never going to go away. It makes total sense that someone would do that, but it's just false that it will never go away, in her case. But living under the pressure of, and this is the thing too that's remarkable too about like how we develop as human beings, because your parents can be great, your schools can be great, but you can also just not have any instruction on how to be a human, how to deal with thoughts and feelings. And you can have your parents treating you one way. Like, I was thinking of an example this morning. Like, let's say she was really good at soccer, and one time she screwed up in a game. And then she looked around and nobody punished her or anything, but she saw her dad's face and he had a look of disappointment on his face because he
Right.
was disappointed. So what she does with that is totally up to her. And what individual people do with that is different. And so, like, she could have taken that in and said, "Oh, he's disappointed in me. I have no value. I'm only valuable, or I'm only lovable when I do well." And she could have, like, formed these things without checking it out with anyone, just making assumptions by reading her environment. And then she's off to the races with this sort of formation of this sort of network of, like, my parents only love me when I do well. I'm a disappointment when I don't do well. If I'm a disappointment, then my parents are, or then I have no value, or whatever. She makes a bunch of meaning of it, right? And that's how we develop. And so we often live with these sort of rules and connections about our worth, how we have value in the world, and what being me is, and what being me in relationship with people is. And so I can just imagine that how I, and her parents could have been totally fine, or they could have been punitive in some way. Who knows? I don't know. Like, did they punish her? Did they say things to her that made her think, I'm less than if I
My
don't perform well?
impression
Yeah.
is absolutely not that, which is what is also
Yeah.
jarring about this case is her parents were fucking awesome. Like, I wish
Yeah.
they were my parents,
I know
but
the dad
he's a
seems so
sweetheart,
sweet.
and the mom too, and her sibling, like, they all loved her very much. But what one thing that stood out to me,
Mm.
and again, I'm not a therapist. I never knew Madison, just based on the things that I read. It seems as though she was also dealing with some OCD, which
Yeah.
tracks with also this kind of rigidity about,
Yeah.
I she finds out I'm a star athlete, got to get even better. Like,
Yeah.
she would run laps around her backyard, around the
Yeah.
goal. Like, she was rigid. Her eating, which
Mhm.
Kate Fagan said, like, there's nothing, no one said anything about her having disordered eating, but she was very conscious of what she ate. And then the one thing that stood out to me is when she would, like, be walking to school,
Mm.
she would track how long it took and then try to beat that time each time she went, which, as someone who's diagnosed OCD, that's makes me think of that, which would also
Mhm.
play into this idea of, it has to be this way
Yes,
or
or I can't
nothing at
handle
all.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder too, she had applied to Harvard. She didn't get into Harvard.
Mm.
Penn was the only Ivy she got into. If she wasn't going to make it work there, then what is she? It's
See,
her
that's
own
the thing.
self perception,
Yes.
I think, of what it is to be successful, what the expectation of her is. She was always in the newspaper,
But
scoring
how
goals, all
Yeah.
of this. And so I get the impression too that she was like the superstar. I don't know, which is not to discount the other. I don't know anything about the other kids in her household. I mean, the two younger ones were also playing sports, but, like, she was the one that got into Penn. She was the one with the straight A's. She was the one that was recruited as an athlete, which
It's
is
so
a big
messed
thing.
up. It's so messed up how it's so messed up how her OCD or whatever it is, right? If you have these behaviors that on the outside are totally reinforced by the culture, like,
Bingo.
no one
I
intervened on it, right? Like, no one
Yeah,
could see that that was a problem. Like,
right.
right? And maybe she didn't let people know. Maybe that was part of it.
That's the impression I have, is
Yeah.
she didn't. I think
Yeah.
that was the other thing with her, is she had a way of making it seem effortless. And also the ways in which, maybe as parents, one thing that Kate Fagan points out in the book is that, keep in mind, Madison was one of five kids. Her parents
Mm,
had a lot of kids to focus on, and the oldest child
mm,
just had, had a baby or was about to have a baby. That there was so much, two younger kids too.
mm,
So
mm.
they were doing great, I think, but they also had four other people to think about. And so Madison probably had a way of just looking like she didn't need any help. Look at what she was doing on her
That's
own, you
that's the
know?
hardest part of being a high achiever is that, your struggles aren't visible unless you let them be.
Right.
And then with OCD especially, and you know, it sometimes can take a long time for people to recognize that's what's going on. And it will swallow your entire life if it's untreated, right? It'll just keep
Well, one thing that now is just occurring to me, sorry to interrupt, is a lot of people I think have the misconception with OCD is that it is, in some cases, it is very visible. Like in severe cases, touch the doorknob 3 times before you open,
mhm,
X amount, these kinds of, or they'll think, oh, OCD, like obsessive hand washing, obsessive, like germophobia is like one aspect, but
mhm.
the one thing with Madison that I'm wondering, and again, this is just speculation, and as somebody with OCD, it's intrusive thoughts,
Yeah. And
intrusive
then
thoughts, and then
right. And
yeah,
then having to right. So that's the part like with ERP, which is like the gold standard of treatment for OCD. That's
what
the
does it
part
stand
that
for?
exposure and response prevention.
Okay,
So you try and deal with the uncertainty part of the brain because that's what gets hijacked with OCD, right? Like that there's this really like it's harder for people who have like an OCD brain or anxiety brain genes to tolerate uncertainty. It's hard for all of us. We all hate it. Like our brains don't like that. And but if you have OCD, it's like that is intolerable, right? That's where like the ritual comes in. Like I'm going to fix that. And you get a little bit of it reinforces it because in the moment it kind of fixes it when you perform the ritual, but then it just comes back.
right.
And so the goal of ERP is to work on, being with uncertainty and doubt. Did I turn the light off? Did I not? Like being able to be like, okay, I turned the light off. I'm just going to, I don't have to go back and check. So part of the work is like noticing that they're thoughts and you don't have to act on them,
Right.
right? But I think that's hard because some people there's the detonator and then the bomb is like you got 4 feet of whatever before the bomb goes off, and then some people you have the detonator and the bomb's like right there. And if it to me it seems like she there wasn't much space internally for her, right? For her to like even allow, or maybe she'd been dealing with it for so long and it was so invisible that it
I
wasn't
feel
quick.
like if I had to
Mhm.
speculate, I think the OCD probably was there very early on, didn't become a problem. It didn't,
Mhm.
it seemed manageable, right? It was also something she probably was getting rewarded for, right? Because of the
Yeah.
straight A's. She was constantly studying all of these things, the running around in the yard, to a parent is like, oh, look at my goal oriented, high achieving child out there. That's commitment, that's discipline. We
Yeah.
mistake certain behaviors or we reward those behaviors, which her OCD, which is not to say that every successful person has OCD, but it became destructive, or then coupled with the depression when she went away to college, because at that point it's almost like the ticking time bomb. Like the
Yeah.
OCD was there, and then it detonated once she got to college and was presented with the idea that she was not perfect, that
It
she
was
was
so
not,
intolerable. Yeah, it
and
just
the
seems like
pain of it,
yeah,
the agony of it, which even though she
shame.
was finally disclosing to the people around her that she was suffering, she seemed like somebody that was also kind of like, I don't know, the one that made sure that all the friends were together, that everything was good in the group.
Mhm.
It could be that she wasn't, either she couldn't articulate exactly how she was feeling, or she was downplaying it a little bit
Mhm.
to not horrify her family. And then also, like, even her coach, I mean, this is again, her track coach, the way that everybody did everything right is
I
is
know.
chilling. The coach said, "Hey, Madison, for like a freshman, where you're sitting right now on the team is amazing. 3.5 GPA, incredible. Even though she's getting this positive reinforcement, she's set the bar so high in her own mind.
Oh, her
And
metrics for
also,
success were out of like way out of control.
and
Yeah.
also the agony of
Mhm.
what it took for her to even achieve those things. And then
Yeah.
knowing that when she went home for Christmas break, she still felt horrible. And that the thought of even going to Lehigh University or Chapel Hill or Vanderbilt, this was like this heavy oppressive chains like resting on her shoulders were not gonna go away. There was gonna be no relief. She's too young to understand and had no point of reference and no one to relate to
And no,
tell
really,
her
I mean,
like there is a solution.
right. I mean, that there's like, oh God, this is what's so tragic about it. I'm going to do my thing again. I have like the most, people are going to stop listening to me because I just repeat myself all the time. But I feel like it boils down again to like, and this makes sense. I mean, the whole pain is the problem thing. Like, as organisms, that makes sense, right? If you get stung by a bee, you're like, ow, that hurts. I'm not going to do
Right.
that again. Our survival depends on it in some ways, but emotionally, it just does not work. And our lives get ruined basically by our making pain the problem. And if we taught this in kindergarten and preschool, kids and all through school, everyone would be so much more well in my mind, because it's not rocket science. It's like, you just have to learn to practice to relating to that differently. And that's an option, but inside it was, she was so tight and tightly wound. And so just being batted around by her thoughts and feelings and weird metrics for success that are like impossible to reach. And maybe there was something about like, I'm just totally speculating, but like she couldn't possibly bear to appear to other people as mediocre or ordinary or, human. And that is also totally like reinforced by the culture.
Yeah, and because she lived on Instagram,
Ugh.
and she so carefully curated her posts to convey this image of somebody who's doing great because she wanted all of that to be true. And she also consumed so much content from other people. And of course, mental health is absolutely an important discussion, which is part of why we're discussing it, but also just recognizing the culture of oversaturation of this illusion that we're putting out that we feel compelled to put out,
Oh,
right?
be
That
perfect, look perfect, be happy, don't get sad, don't get depressed, don't
while at the
like
same time
mhm,
talking about the importance of, it becomes a
mental health.
soundbite, mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was the pressure of appearances for sure, coupled with this, it sounds like debilitating depression, OCD, whatever. She never was able to be in therapy long enough to even get a sense of what the diagnosis would be, right?
Yeah.
And that is the thing. I see it all the time. I remember during COVID, getting on TikTok, and I look at like these get ready with me videos.
Ugh.
I see these influencers and these palatial homes and looking great. And this is what I do to reset my Sunday. And it's like this heavily edited, cute thing with music and it, you know, looking at all
Ugh.
of that. And I'm watching this and I'm like, I don't have marble countertops. It
My
takes
underwear
me
have holes in them.
right. How does she fold that fitted sheet? How did she do it? It's every little thing. Just it points to the failure in my life, and I laugh at
It's
it now, right?
horrible,
I'm
yeah.
the great thing about turning 53 this year is, man, I care. I give even fewer shits now. I'm
Yeah.
like, whatever. I'm a slob. It takes me forever to get anything done. I still haven't fixed the fucking hose out back. It's fine. You know what I mean? But to an impressionable, and this is me even just as recently as a year ago looking at the stuff going, man, I'm I wish I was that together. And then that they're probably not that together either. They set up their camera to do that. Like, come on. It took them
Ugh.
even more steps to get the shit done and to make it look effortless. But to a, 18, 19-year-old girl that grew up, we grew up, we had the benefit of growing up without, this is the great thing about Gen X is we're sort of the line between no computers, no cell phones, answering machines were high tech. That's what we thought of as high tech. All that. We didn't have streaming services. We're the link between that time and insane progress, technological progress. She grew up only ever knowing that social media existed and cell phones, et cetera, et cetera. She was born into media saturation.
Ugh. I mean, I feel like it's on overdrive, in with social media. It's like we have far more opportunities to be sort of pulled into the comparison game, which is the meanest thing we can do to ourselves. But, I struggle with perfectionism all the time, every day. I just have had training in recognizing that that is there and
Right.
realizing that it's not going away. Like, that's never going to go away from me. My metrics for success are way up here, and I'm always going to have that show up in my work, in my relationships, with this podcast. It's probably really annoying as my friend. Like, it's like you see it, you're like, ooh, um, like, why is she? But it's I can now see it 10 to 15% of the time and say to myself, "Oh God, there that is again. I'm like being a total asshole to myself right now. This is ridiculous. These standards of being omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, and perfect." And I got a big pimple today, and I was like, I don't care. But it was work. It was like
Right.
that thing showed up, was like, you cannot have an imperfection. And I don't know. I think that's like evolutionary in some ways. I think that we must have something left over from like being social and having our survival depending on where we fit in the group and always sort of assessing our value to the group. And, there must be, because it's ubiquitous. I think everybody struggles with it to some degree, but some more so. Like, I can have
Right.
failure. I fail all the time and I can tolerate it. Obviously, otherwise I'd be like a billionaire by now and would have pushed myself a lot harder in life. But,
Yeah.
I can handle like failure a little better, I guess. But it's just it's sad to think that so many of us are walking around with this operating in the background all the time, and it controlling us and our behaviors, right? And or making our lives shitty. Like that, it sort of takes the fun out of and pleasure out of everything. So, anyway, I just feel like it wouldn't it be great if this was all normalized as like, okay, yeah, you're a human, you're going to do that. And it makes total sense that you're doing that, and stop it because it's ruining your life. Or keep doing it, but notice that that's happening and don't get so caught up in it. Like if she could have just said like, oh God, I'm doing that perfection thing again. Whatever that was, I'll just have to live with this feeling of not being good enough, and then expose myself to that over and over again. And then one day it won't be so hard. But like, we just don't get that training. And I don't think she could get flexible enough to really let anyone see what she was contending with. And if she did, then they weren't able to really help her in a skillful, effective way. But it's heartbreaking because it's absolutely 100% preventable, I think, if you have the right resources and you have all community involvement and the schools on top of it. But when you, like, if she had OCD in another way where she's like, I can't leave my house, then someone would intervene. But if you have OCD and you're just like a high performer, people, it's like,
They're rewarding
yeah,
it
yeah,
without even realizing that that's what they're doing. They're
yeah,
rewarding it and reinforcing it.
yeah.
And it's interesting that the hindsight thing. One of her last races in high school, apparently she collapsed when she crossed the finish line, which again is to show how hard she pushed herself, how hard so many of these athletes push themselves and are rewarded for it. You see that collapsing as a sign that you're giving everything, and no one is thinking like giving too much which again isn't to say that when she did that, I mean, that happens. That
Yep.
happens. But it's interesting because right after that, she, takes a really great Instagram picture of her smiling, with her dad,
Mm.
and that's the thing that from that day, it's the smiling picture makes
Mhm.
the timeline on her feed, not the collapsing, not that anyone took a picture of her collapsing, but like there is so
Yeah.
much of that language that we'll find out about too with Katie Meyer and with so many athletes, is this perspective of you have to suffer. You suffer for greatness. You have to toughen up. Like there's so much language. Walk it off. Just walk it
Yeah.
off. And I understand that, and I think it is necessary to be able to do things like, this is where it's so tricky, is like, yeah, you do, but mental toughness is important, and you
Mhm.
do need to walk it off sometimes, and you do need to push through pain, and you do need to suffer, and suffering is a part of life, but it's understanding where the line is and where it's impeding maybe on the rest of your life. And maybe that's the barometer or whatever, is to look at how the rest of your life is falling into place
Like,
with
is it
with
working?
this other, if it's working, if everything else is going to shit, then it's not okay. And it doesn't mean you're a loser. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. It's just it's so sad that Madison couldn't see her value to everyone around her, that had nothing to do with her academically, that had nothing to do with the way she looked, that had nothing to do with her athletic performance, that just like the her of her
Yeah.
was more than enough, and there was some indications, like her little brother saying, hey, you don't laugh anymore. Like people loved her laughing, and they loved her sense of humor and
Yeah.
the way that she brought her group of friends together, but that was not, she didn't see that,
Mhm. Or if
you
she
know
did, it was like paled in comparison to some other calculation, like yeah, I don't know, I just think about how private these struggles are and how complex they are.
yeah,
Like, you just never know how things people are putting together things in their mind and what it is that's actually, like, functioning to I mean, unless you can get in there with them, you don't know, like, what is the thing that's sort of driving this, you know?
yeah.
That's why I think that there should be better training all through life in this kind of thing, in just being, like, behaviorally and mentally well. Just like anything, you learn to tie your shoes when you're 5. If you learned to do this when you were 5, you'd be an expert by the time you were 19, you know?
How would that, how would one, if let's say that you were in charge of this program at
Mhm.
an elementary school, what would you propose?
Well, they have more nowadays. They have these sweet programs that come in and teach kids mindfulness. And they have also stuff like that we didn't have about kindness and friendship and
No,
compassion.
we absolutely didn't have that. Not at
No.
all.
No. Like, if there's a kid sitting alone at a bench, there's, like, a friendship bench now, and you can go sit someone will go sit by them. And
Really?
but
Because when I was that kid,
yeah,
people pointed and laughed. But anyway, carry on.
exactly.
Like, so terrible.
Exactly. So, I think there's more savvy now, and kids are getting it younger, but my bias is I would work on from a behavioral lens, and I would teach kids early to be that we have thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and we don't have any control over those, and that to learn to notice, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, whether you're getting tangled up in it. God, it's so complex. But I think one thing is like this idea of like context and ourselves, and because people are like, I'm fine when I'm at home, but I go to a party and then I'm like this, "Ugh," and they're like freaked out by it. And I'm like, of course, like, because you're in a totally different context. And there are all these cues in your environment that weren't there before, and all these pressures and thoughts and feelings that don't exist when you're home alone, when you're at a party. But people are so like, that blows their mind. They know it. Like, we know we're different in different contexts, but I think we like judge ourselves because of that. But really, that's just how we are. We're contextual beings. We're born into a relationship, and we're impacted by each other and we shape each other all through life. And I guess I would just teach people how to work the levers. I guess that's how I think of it. It's like we don't have a choice about like a lot of things, and we don't have a lot of control of a lot of things, but we have control about how we relate to internal events and external events. If we can have awareness of what's going on inside of us and space to kind of choose our moves in life versus just reacting out of, fear, anger, anxiety, whatever. It's about like we can spend our whole lives learning how to do that. And, there's other pieces like, it's not 100% of the time that we can actually do that and be present. But there's also like stuff like self-compassion, like working with actively treating yourself better, like noticing when you're not, and then bringing some kindness into the equation. So there's a lot of stuff to learn, but it's all learnable. And we all have our different ranges of how much we're going to be able to apply that learning just based on all kinds of things. But like it just seems so obvious to me. It was like learning math or something. And it's not magic. It's like we're all dealing with the same apparatus and we all sort of suffer in similar ways. And I mean, I feel like a bit of a born again in terms of like behaviorism because it really has changed my life. I've done all kinds of other therapies and they didn't help me change my life, but it takes work and practice. And I think the whole thing is like with mental health stuff, I think people think you're going to go into a therapy room and you're going to say some magic words and you're going to suddenly have some insights and then your life's going to be different. And that's just not what happened. That's not how it works, I don't think. So, yeah.
That's so interesting. There's a couple things that come up for me with that, and one is what you were saying about, for example, someone feeling one way at home, they go to a party and they kind of the way that they feel freaks them out because they're why am I feeling anxious at this party, or why am I feeling
Mhm.
overwhelmed at this party, and they take it as a bad thing, and those feelings, I think that's where we get kind of like where we catch a snag, is that the feelings can be so uncomfortable
Yes.
and they overtake us.
And then you have thoughts about
And
the feelings and feelings about the thoughts and thoughts about the feelings and feelings, and then you escalate it. Yeah.
my coach, I think I've said this before on a previous episode, my boxing coach had told me that pain is information. You have to view it
Yes.
as information. And so these feelings that are coming in are information about the fact that you're in a different context. And rather than letting it overwhelm you, you take it and you go, okay, I'm feeling freaked out. What can I do to help that feeling? Like the other day, few months ago, actually, when I told you, whoa, I started to have a panic attack and I needed to go. I took myself in the backyard because I knew that a temperature change would change it, the heat from the sun, because my house runs a little cold,
Mhm.
the sunshine, the heat, and then the sound of the water fountain I have outside, and then the act of picking up the dog poop that's in the yard that I have to do
Mhm.
every day. And just all of that helped kind of reset things, which isn't to say that that would always work. I've had situations where I was like grasping at straws. I'm like, panic attack, sniff
Yes.
the lavender oil. It's not working. Go over here and do this. Now I'm going to do my tapping that I do. Now I'm going to, until something works. Eventually, either something works or time runs its course, and
Yeah.
it goes. But the other thing is what you said about behaviorism, and this is so interesting because it reminded me of the fact, um, when I took scene study at Beverly Hills Playhouse, there was the actors checklist that you would go through, to find your way. So you have a character, So I'm like, okay, I'm playing, you know, trying to think of a fictional character from a play. Oh fuck, I can't think of anything, but whatever. Uh
Othello.
Iago.
Okay.
I'm Iago. Perfect. He's like one of my favorite Shakespearean characters. He's so terrible. So like let's say I'm playing Iago. So I have the actors checklist, and one of the things is behavior.
Mhm.
And the way for me into a character, I think for a lot of people who studied acting, that this will resonate with them. But sometimes when you're at a loss, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not this sort of like Machiavellian evil person. My way into Iago is through his behavior. So let's think of
Mhm.
actions he does. Maybe he's always thinking, his eyes are always moving. He's always thinking, maybe he has a tick, maybe he's got a tick because he's an edgy person. Or what's something he can do? He always fiddles. He's fiddling all the time. He's
Mhm.
listening. He's hunched over. He's kind of hunched over because he's listening to what Othello is saying all the time. And you find your way in
Mm.
through behavior.
Mm.
So like with what you're saying, you can find your way out through behavior, through change of behavior,
Absolutely.
right?
And everything the organism does when it comes to like functional contextualism, everything we do is behavior, even if we don't have control over it, like thoughts and feelings. And so, yeah, you find your way out through expanding your behavioral repertoire. So, when we get stressed out, so what I say to clients all the time when they're feeling something, I'm like, what do you think this pain is telling us about what's important to you? Because usually pain is information about something that's important to you because you don't
Right.
hurt if you don't care.
Right.
So there was something important to her that was happening that was like either threatened or uncertain or something, right? And it just, she didn't know how to translate that pain into like, okay, well, what is this telling me about what is important to me? And how can I, given this feeling I have, how can I have this and move toward that thing that's important to me? So, like, the answer with behaviorism is like when we're stressed, when we're anxious, well, not all behaviorism, but radical behaviorism and and functional contextualism is when you when your behavioral repertoire narrows, right? My only option is suicide. That's a sign, right? Like our behavioral repertoire does narrow when we're threatened or we're anxious or we're angry or we're right, and for
Mhm.
good reason. It's all survival related. So, but our brain can't distinguish between like a saber-toothed tiger attack and like a little bit of embarrassment, in front of a group or something. It's like danger, danger, danger in both situations, and it's both very intense. And we narrow, 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 and then we react rigidly based on whatever pattern is there, right? We lash out, we hide, we whatever we do. And the key is you don't have to make any of that go away. Like it's going to be there probably. Like your first response is probably not always your best response when you're under stress, but it's
Sure.
probably always going to show up as your first response. It's just about learning that that's going to happen and accepting that's going to happen. We don't have to take that away. In fact, you probably can't. We have to add new things that you can do when you when you narrow, when you're angry, when you're scared, when you're lonely, and then that's like
New
slow.
behaviors.
Yeah, slowing down is a new behavior instead of speeding up. Looking at it instead of letting it, being inside the tornado and looking at the world through the lens. You're looking at it versus through it. All these tools you can use to sort of make a little space between impulse and action so that you can stop doing the things that are screwing your life up, basically. Right?
Right.
Like, so you don't punch that person when you get mad at them. You actually take a breath and say, I need like 5 minutes before we have this conversation. So it's like building new things in and expanding the repertoire, which is so hopeful because we can't delete this stuff. Some of it is so hardwired into us. So anyway, that's my answer for the
Yeah.
saving the world. Mhm.
No, that is helpful. It is interesting because it is like that, having that distance, that kind of objective distance from your experience, even as you feel it. Because
Yeah.
obviously, like when I'm in the onset of like a panic attack, which is the worst fucking feeling ever.
Ugh. I've never had one.
It's
Thank God.
oh dude, it feels like you're being shot with adrenaline,
Hmm.
like this intense adrenaline that and it feels like you're gonna die. It
Mm.
almost like a mix of a heart attack, but then there's also some like weird numbness that happens. And
Oh.
yeah, it's the worst. But so like that feeling, yeah, exactly. Like it's not like you can go, hey, this is a panic attack, I'm gonna go stand over here and it'll go away.
Mhm.
I'm going to listen to some relaxing music. That sometimes makes it worse.
Of
The
course.
whole take a deep breath shit. Fuck that.
No,
The
it's just
deep
like
breath shit doesn't
make
work.
it stop, right? Like this
Right.
yeah, I cannot
Right.
yeah.
But telling myself this is the panic attack. I do the I it's I what is it? Fight fear with fact,
Mhm.
so like these mechanisms, like, okay, I'm recognizing this isn't a heart attack. The odds of me having a heart attack, virtually impossible. So you kind of do that as you're like taking yourself to a new environment, and then doing new things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Adopting these new, and then it's also giving myself permission for it to not work. Like,
And
I'm outside right now, and it feels warm. Okay, picking up the dog poop. Cool. Fountain. I can hear the neighbor kids playing.
yes.
And it kind of it does help to that change, or that shift
Mhm.
changes things. Saying all of this, and I know that Madison was, who knows, there was definitely some anxiety present for sure.
But yeah,
But
the thing you did was so skillful because this is the thing that's so interesting too. Like we can't really control what's going on, right? Like the flood of emotion and anxiety and the sensations, but you can control your attention if you can remember, right? So you can
right,
put your attention on something else and that helps, right? To like orient yourself to your surroundings and to take it off of because you get out of that loop that escalates the panic attack in some ways,
right,
right? Because if you're paying attention to the sensations, you're worried about the sensations, and then, oh my god, it's gonna, and then you just, you know, and so if you can just not escalate it by either, with ACT, there's 6 processes by which you do this, but diffusion is one of them. It's just a made up word for looking at thoughts instead of like buying them immediately, just looking at them and being like, oh wow, I'm having that thought. Like I am not that thought, but I'm having that thought. So it's like having your experience so that it doesn't have you, like, right? So like stepping outside of the tornado, and it's not that like you don't feel the influence of the tornado because you're sitting, it sucks sometimes what we feel, oh god, just being a human is so hard all day long, especially with social media.
yeah,
um and so it's not like where you're free of that kind of like it's whipping in your face, but you're not in the washing machine, you're sort of looking into the washing machine,
right.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
that distance. If you're able to, and over time, it becomes easier to have a distance from the feelings that are happening as you're feeling them.
Yeah, and you
It's
can contain them. You're like, "I can survive
yes,
this." Yeah.
exactly. I want to say that Madison's family, they started, it's called Madison Holleran Foundation.org. I can send it to you. I'm going to send this to you so you can add it in the show notes. And their motto is basically like, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm,
And I'm realizing now, Shannon, that we should probably save
yeah.
Katie Meyer for next week, and also because we're going to be getting into the lawsuit, which
Yes.
is it's a whole other thing. In addition to, I mean, this is obviously related. These are two tragic cases. Katie had been treated for what she was going through.
Yeah.
Madison, this was new for her. This was not. This was all new for her.
Yeah, let's do that.
But I think that's a good idea, and we've,
Beating this horse to death.
yeah, I know that we should probably wrap up, but one thing I kind of want to end with is how Kate Fagan ends her article, Split Image. It's an article worth reading, guys. This is how she ends her article. A little over a year before she died, Madison posted on Instagram a snapshot of a quote from 17 magazine. The quote reads, "Even people you think are perfect are going through something difficult." The image had been put through a filter.
Mm,
So even that quote that she put in her Instagram, she put a filter on it,
oh,
which is so telling, again, that thing of, I recognize this intellectually that this is true. I still
yeah,
have this pressure.
absolutely.
But that's the story of Madison Holleran, and it really is relevant to just where we are in this day and age with the pressures of social media and
Yeah.
how we sort of, I guess, contextualize ourselves like in the greater landscape, and we can't get away like there's so much we just can't get away from.
Mm-mm.
And I don't know, just I know that it's popular right now to talk about mental health. I mean, it is an important discussion, and I think we'll get more into the how we define it next week when we talk about Katie Meyer.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm
It's
like,
so sad.
I'm all ding, 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 da,
Uh,
ding, ding. Yeah, no, I know. It's well. Here's the
Thanks
thing.
for joining us,
I
guys.
hope you have a happy day now.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I think for one, if we can end on maybe we'll end on this note. So, if you're interested, especially like mental health professionals, I think more and more we're recognizing that it's preventable. Just like there are like 30,000 flights a day or something, and there are barely ever any plane accidents, right? I think we can get there with suicide. I just think that people need to be trained and supported and maybe start to recognize that it is something that is preventable largely if people can see the signs and can intervene. And so if you want to check out the zero suicide movement, and there's some other links I'll put in the show notes so you can see the work that people are doing to sort of get into institutions and provide training and support for people in schools and in medical practices to try to work with this so that we lose less people. The suicide statistics are insane. I mean, there's like, I think it's the second leading cause of death of people in America now. I'll look that up, but I think it's up there.
Right. And I think we'll also get into this more next week, but that the number of suicides at Penn prior to Madison's, around the time of Madison, actually, and this again, it speaks to pressure. It speaks to shame. It speaks to how we sort of define ourselves, and our worth and our value as these. I mean, I believe that superficial things, academic
Mhm.
success, professional success, athletic success, and I think we have social media certainly more now than ever to that is, that's it amplifies, because we understand that we are visible now to millions of people. We put ourselves out there. Anyone can access your social media and look at you,
Ugh.
and that is bizarre. It
Ugh.
really is. It's a strange thing, and this consciousness of how we present ourselves.
Ooh, I have such a hang up about doing this video podcast. Like, I'm glad because we can see each other, and I think, people
Yeah,
like enjoy the visual, but it is so weird to
yeah,
just put but you've done it so many times that it's like you've gotten accustomed to it, but it is a wild, weird world we're living in now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I know, guys, I know it's especially funny when I talk about the way we put ourselves out there, and the way that you can find me just with a simple Google search and what I'm doing in that images, videos. But yeah, I'm still reconciling that as well. But it is an important discussion,
Yeah.
and I think Madison really stands as a symbol of, like, yeah, like even someone like her can suffer, you know,
Yeah.
and she did, and her family has that foundation. And if there's anything good that can come out of this, it's an awareness that suffering isn't just for people who are dealing with financial troubles, family troubles, friendship troubles, school troubles.
Yeah, and just because the external behavior looks normal or successful doesn't mean that it's functioning that way for someone. They might be doing like some two different people could be doing the same exact thing. And
Hmm.
one could be being driven by a sense of like fear of failure, feeling not good enough. And the other one could be driven by a desire to, appetitive, like I want this, so I'm doing this. And so you never know, just based on what you see with someone's external behavior, how that's functioning for them. And it can be totally not well. Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that is that is it for today. Join us next week when we talk about another suicide. No, next week is Katie Meyer, and we were going to do this, but her story has another kind of, we would have been on here for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Because we're getting into also the lawsuit and some other things with regard to like Stanford University and the way that it was handled, everything around that. Okay, Shannon. Oh yeah, don't forget to check out the show notes so you can get some links to some articles about Madison, the foundation that her family started, and follow us on Instagram at Secret Passage Podcast, or if X is your jam, at Secret Pass Pod, and join our Patreon if you want to. That would be pretty cool as well. And I wish I could end this with some kind of a funny joke. I can't think of anything. So we'll just maybe go out and breathe some fresh air and enjoy the sunshine.
Yes. Get off your computer and touch grass.
Yes. And we're saying that in a nice way, not in the mean way that some people are like, go touch grass.
I need to touch. I tell myself, I say that to myself a lot. Go touch grass. Yeah. Oh, people say it meanly?
Yeah. Sometimes they're like,
oh, yeah.
Go touch grass. You're a jerk, which usually everybody could benefit from touching some grass. I get like itchy when I touch grass. So I'll touch my artificial grass outside. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.